My name is Sloan Avery Quinn, 35 years old. Night school smells like burnt coffee and ambition. The kind you drink because you have to, not because it's good. At 6:30 p.m., the campus lot fills with second shifts. Teachers still in chalk dust, nurses with badge reels, parents snatching one last FaceTime before class. I'd clock 40 hours as a paralegal, then shoulder a backpack and climb 3 flights to contracts like it was a mountain I'd picked on purpose. Night school is for losers, Mason said the first time I told him. You're too old to change careers. I said, you might be right, because sometimes agreeing is cheaper than the fight. Then I printed the admission email, folded it small, and kept it in my wallet like a talisman. State University College of Law, Evening Division. I had 4 years to become someone he couldn't shrink. It wasn't like I hadn't tried to make the life we had work. We met after I got laid off from the corporate desk job, me on a construction crew, him, the silver-tongued ideas guy who liked how my shoulders looked, carrying drywall. A year later, he found an apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and a rent that made my stomach clench, then said, 50-50, right? Like the math couldn't insult me. He made twice what I did. He kept his money fenced. When I got the paralegal job at a small firm, he clapped my shoulder like a coach. Better hours, he said. Less dust on the sheets. When I said I was applying to the night JD, he laughed. 4 years? You'll be 35 when you graduate. He tapped a calendar like it had handcuffs. Everyone your age will already be partners. Not the ones who started late, I said. Not the ones like me. The first semester was a bloodletting. 40 hours in office beige, then 2-hour commute round trip, 4 nights a week, home by 10, study until 2, up again at 6. Mason wanted Netflix, dinners out, weekends away. He'd lean in the doorway, beer bottle at his mouth. Can't you skip for once? Alina's hosting a thing. It'll look weird if you're never there. I'll look weirder failing Civ Pro. He started calling me his perpetual student at parties. When I made law review at 32, he smirked. Wow, top of the remedial class. When my Crim Pro professor recommended me for a federal clerkship down the line, I said nothing. When I landed a summer DA internship, I told him it was extra work. It was easier to hide the good than watch him set fire to it. Night school is ugly and holy in equal measure. It's flashcards taped to a bathroom mirror and grocery lists with IRAC scrawled in the margins. It's falling asleep on statutes and waking up with pen imprints on your cheek. It's knowing your classmates' tired faces like family and sharing outlines like oxygen. It's a question that starts with, at 31, isn't it too late to? And ends with, no, because I'm doing it. By year 3, Mason had perfected the art of sabotage disguised as concern. I'm just trying to protect you from disappointment, he'd say after telling me. My suit made me look like I was playing lawyer. He started going out without me because you're always studying anyway. Stories bloomed on his Instagram at restaurants with captions like, table for one while the girlfriend plays Elle Woods. I stopped checking his tags. I taught myself to breathe through humiliation like it was another quiz I could pass if I focused. 6 months before graduation, the apartment smelled like someone else. A cologne I didn't buy, a perfume I didn't wear. There were 2 wine glasses in the sink and one had lipstick on it. Mason shrugged when I asked. My coworker, Bradley, dropped me off. That's his deodorant or whatever. Bradley, I repeated, tasting the name like a lie with a mint in it. Even the dog next door could smell the story and whined at the wall like it had feelings about infidelity. I did what exhausted people do when they've run out of fight and time. I said, nice of him, and opened my evidence binder. Then I waited until he left for a guy's weekend and moved into a studio near campus with a dresser that fit under the window and rent I could breathe inside. I left a note in block letters. Need quiet for the bar. Best of luck. I didn't say with whom. The silence after a bad love is a cathedral. You can hear the parts of yourself you put in storage clattering home. I studied like hunger. I color-coded until my highlighters went dry. I made peace with the idea that if I failed, at least I failed trying. I cut his name out of my sentences and filled the hole with statute numbers. I passed the bar on the first try. I got an offer as an assistant district attorney in a unit where the supervisor, Janet, started law school at 40 and wore her hair like an argument no one could win. She shook my hand and said, "We like late bloomers." I wanted to tell her I wasn't late. I was right on time for me. The thing about starting over is that people who never believed in your beginning will suddenly want a cameo at your arrival. The first week of training, Janet sent me to traffic court to observe the cadence, how calendars moved, how stipulations landed, what seasoned ADAs did with breath between "Your Honor" and "State is ready." The judge was a rapid-fire metronome, calling cases like stations on a train line he'd ridden too many times. Citation 7854B, State versus Melissa Hartwell. The name hit me like a hand on my throat. Melissa. The girl in the old photos from Mason's college years. The one he used to say was crazy whenever he needed me to forgive something. The ex who'd reappeared in his DMs the month I moved out. The one whose username kept surfacing like an oil slick in my peripheral vision until I blocked it. She took 2 steps forward in a suit that cost a weekend of my old rent. Perfect makeup, jaw set, the dismissive expression I remembered from Instagram stories where she called everyone sweetie like a blade. She represented herself. It's an 87 and a 55-plus reckless for weaving, the bailiff said. The radar was faulty, she replied smoothly. Also, I was singled out because I'm a successful woman. Do you have evidence of radar malfunction? The judge asked, barely looking up. I have rights, she said, and frankly I don't appreciate... Dashcam counselor? The judge said to the officer, who nodded and cued footage. The video made a liar of the room. Melissa's car sliced lanes like a dare, the numbers on the overlay unforgiving. The judge found her guilty, $750 fine, points on the license. It was surgical, over in 3 minutes. She gathered her bag without looking at anyone, then looked directly at me, in the prosecution section, and froze. Recognition is a light turning on in a house you forgot you lived in. Sloan? She said in the hallway, disbelief wrapped in perfume. What are you doing here? I work here, I said, assistant DA. Her mouth opened, closed, recalculated. You actually graduated. Night school teaches us persistence, I said, also humility. She laughed, a dry little sound. Bradley and I broke up, she added for no reason anyone had asked. Maybe we could grab coffee, catch up? The old, casual entitlement, like I might still orbit whatever Mason and Melissa decided the world should be. I'm good, I said, but next time you get a ticket, consider hiring counsel. Representing yourself is usually a mistake. She stared at me like I'd mispronounced audacity. We were all young, you know? Some of us grow up. Some of us do, I said. My phone buzzed. A training text from Janet. Nice spot in the back. You watch better when no one sees you. I looked up from the screen and saw Melissa still studying me. Like if she looked hard enough, she could reconfigure the past into a story where she won. There's a particular kind of silence after a door closes on a life you outgrew. It isn't quiet. It's applause you give yourself because no one else knows when to clap. I put my phone away and walked back to the courtroom. Behind me, I could feel the old world trying to follow. The thing about the past is, it doesn't stay buried. It waits, quiet and patient, until it can embarrass you in the daylight. The morning after traffic court, I told myself it was over. Melissa was just a footnote in a docket, another name called and dismissed. But footnotes have a way of becoming chapters. 3 days later, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Unknown. Hey, proud of you. Always knew you'd make it. Maybe we could talk? I deleted it. 2 hours later, new number. Unknown. Seriously, Sloan, can we clear the air? We were good together once. I blocked that one too. By the end of the week, she'd used 5 different numbers. Each message sounded more desperate than the last, alternating between flattery and accusation. You owe me a conversation. You abandoned me to poverty while you chased your little degree. Bradley turned out to be married. I guess we both have bad taste. The last one made me laugh out loud in the office break room. Janet, my supervisor, looked up from her folder. Bad taste in what? Men, I said. Exes, take your pick. Janet smirked. Welcome to the club. Just document everything. You never know when crazy decides to file paperwork. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. The complaint came 2 weeks later. Janet called me into her office, motioned for the door to close. We got an email from the Bar Association this morning. My stomach dropped. What? Apparently someone filed a complaint alleging you used your position to influence a traffic case. I didn't even need to ask who. Melissa. Janet slid a thin folder across the desk. She's claiming you intimidated her by being in the courtroom. I stared. I was observing. I didn't even speak. She didn't know I was there until after the verdict. I know, Janet said calmly. I reviewed the footage. You weren't even in the courtroom when her case was called. She leaned back. We'll handle the formal response, but you need to start keeping records, texts, calls, anything. Filing false complaints is a crime, and if she keeps this up, we'll press charges. She was trying to reassure me, but my hands still shook, because this was classic Melissa. She'd always known how to twist victimhood into a weapon. I walked out of Janet's office with a folder full of evidence and a knot in my chest that wouldn't untie. The following week, I found out what escalation really meant. Melissa posted on LinkedIn. Headline: Successful women, beware of men who use you to build themselves, then discard you. It was a carefully crafted essay about emotional labor, sacrifice, and betrayal. She didn't name me, but the details were surgical. He worked construction when we met. He used my income to pay for law school. He left the moment he graduated. Within hours, mutual acquaintances had connected the dots. Screenshots poured into my inbox from old colleagues and law school classmates. The comments were vicious. Some sympathized, others speculated. I wanted to stay silent, but silence, I realized, was the space she grew in. That night, I sat with my friend Terrence, one of my classmates and a wizard with social media. She's poisoning the narrative, he said, scrolling through her post. You can't just let this sit. I'm not starting a public fight, I said. Then just post the receipts. So I did, one calm, measured reply. Interesting revisionist history. For the record, I paid my own tuition. $67,000 in loans I'm still paying. Worked full-time throughout law school. Split rent 50-50 on an apartment above my budget at her request. Never received a cent of support. Left quietly when the relationship became toxic. Love isn't control, and success doesn't need permission. Receipts available if necessary. I posted it, then I logged off. Terrence stayed online to watch the fallout. By midnight, Melissa's post was deleted, but it was too late. Because Bradley's wife had seen it. She commented under my post, tagging Melissa's company and attaching screenshots, text messages, hotel receipts, and very explicit photos that left no room for doubt. Melissa's company, a polished PR firm, had a strict code of conduct. By morning, her LinkedIn profile vanished. You'd think that would be the end, but Melissa's favorite word was attention, and she wasn't done spelling it. When her job disappeared, she tried 3 different attorneys to sue me for defamation. Every single one declined once they saw the evidence trail she'd created against herself. So she went nuclear in the only way left. Small claims court, $9,500 for emotional support and career guidance. When I read the filing, I actually laughed. Is this real life? I asked Janet. Oh, it's real, she said, eyes glinting, and it's going to be entertaining. The day of the hearing, I arrived 15 minutes early in my second-best suit, the one without the mustard stain from the night I ate dinner over my case files. Melissa was already there, wearing what I could only describe as wronged woman chic. Conservative dress, hair in a bun, pearl earrings that practically screamed innocence. Her mother sat beside her, clutching tissues like she was auditioning for grief. The commissioner looked exhausted before we even began. Melissa went first. She spoke for 20 straight minutes, spinning tales of sacrifice and emotional labor. I spent 6 years guiding her, lifting her up, keeping her stable when she doubted herself, she said. Behind every successful man, well, woman, is another woman who never got paid for her work. The commissioner blinked. Do you have any documentation of this guidance? It was verbal, daily encouragement. I tried not to laugh. When it was my turn, I opened my folder. Your Honor, I said calmly, here are 6 years of bank statements showing I paid 50% of all shared expenses. Here are loan documents for my tuition, $67,000 in my name alone. Here are pay stubs from my paralegal job showing steady income throughout our relationship. The commissioner flipped through the papers. So, you were financially independent? Completely. Melissa's mother jumped up. My daughter gave her best years to you. The commissioner sighed. Ma'am, please sit down. Melissa's voice rose. She used my emotional labor. Your Honor, I said, holding up my phone. If I may, there's a voice message dated May 15th, 2021. I pressed play. I'm not wasting my Saturday at your stupid fake law school event. It's embarrassing enough that my girlfriend is a 33-year-old student. I'm not watching you play pretend lawyer with losers who couldn't hack it the first time. The courtroom went still. The commissioner turned to Melissa. Miss Hartwell, this doesn't sound supportive. That was taken out of context, she snapped. Would you like me to play the one from my law review acceptance? I asked politely. This is harassment. You filed the case, Miss Hartwell, the commissioner reminded her. In 10 minutes, it was over. Case dismissed. And then the coup de grace. Melissa ordered to pay my filing fees and court costs. She went pale. This is corruption. She's a prosecutor. You're all protecting her. The commissioner's tone hardened. You are dangerously close to contempt. Pay the clerk and leave. Her mother grabbed her arm, whispering frantically, but Melissa shook her off. As I gathered my documents, she hissed, You destroyed my life. I looked at her, really looked. The smeared mascara, the tremor in her hands, the fury masquerading as heartbreak. No, I said quietly. You destroyed your own life. I just stopped letting you destroy mine. I walked out of that courtroom lighter than I'd felt in years. Not happy, not vindicated, just free. Freedom, I learned, doesn't come as a single moment. It comes in increments. It's the first morning you wake up and realize your phone hasn't buzzed with unknown numbers. It's the day your chest doesn't tighten when you check the mail. It's when silence finally feels safe again. For 3 months after the small claims hearing, Melissa disappeared. No texts, no complaints, no new posts about emotional labor or ungrateful partners. I started to breathe again. Work at the DA's office picked up. Janet trusted me with my own misdemeanor caseload, and the rhythm of court began to feel like home. Motion hearings, plea deals, paperwork stacked in towers that smelled faintly of ink and adrenaline. Ethan and I began to rebuild what life looked like outside of chaos. We spent weekends painting our tiny apartment, cooking dinners that didn't come in to-go boxes, and sitting on the balcony long after the sun went down. It was quiet, predictable, normal, until it wasn't. I got the call on a Thursday morning. Ms. Quinn? The voice on the line was clipped, official. This is Detective Ramirez from Family Court Investigations. We need to confirm a few details about a witness named Melissa Hartwell. I froze. I'm sorry, what does this have to do with me? She's been subpoenaed in a divorce proceeding. The presiding judge has referred a possible perjury issue to the DA's office. My blood ran cold. Perjury? Yes, ma'am. Apparently, she claimed under oath that her relationship with a married man, Bradley Reynolds, was strictly professional. The opposing counsel produced hotel receipts, with her name on them. I sat very still. And you're calling me because... She listed you as a character witness, he said flatly, to vouch for her honesty. I almost laughed. Detective, I think she confused me with someone who doesn't remember being gaslit for 6 years. He chuckled under his breath. That's kind of what I figured. We'll note your refusal. Good call, I said. And, Detective? Yeah? Good luck. Janet called 5 minutes later. She'd already heard. She's in custody, Janet said, charged with making a false statement, pled down from perjury, not jail time, but she's on probation. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling tiles. Of course she is. She's a slow learner, Janet said dryly. The system always catches up, eventually. The news spread quickly. Melissa's company found out through the court records. Their morality clause didn't leave much room for interpretation. Within a week, she was gone. Fired quietly, the press release using words like personal reasons and mutual separation. A month later, I ran into her friend Denise at a coffee shop. Denise had always been one of those perfect socialites. Sharp hair, sharper gossip. She smiled like she'd been waiting for this conversation. Sloan, she said, eyes sparkling with a mix of curiosity and pity, I heard you're with the DA's office now. I nodded. I am. Good for you, she said, stirring her latte. Melissa really screwed up, huh? That's one way to put it. She leaned in conspiratorially. She always thought she was better than everyone, even us. When you left, she told everyone you'd come crawling back once you realized how much you owed her. Guess I disappointed her, I said, sipping my coffee. Denise smirked. She still doesn't understand why you won't talk to her. She keeps saying you were meant to be friends. I set down my cup. Denise, friends don't weaponize love. They don't humiliate you for wanting more, and they don't file bar complaints when you refuse to play along. Denise blinked, caught off guard by the honesty. You're right, she said softly. She needs help, real help. Yeah, I said, standing, but I'm not her rehab program. Months passed. The bar complaint officially closed, dismissed as unfounded. My file was clean, my reputation intact. But the emotional residue remained. There are things you don't get over. You just learn to carry them differently. One night, Ethan found me sitting at the kitchen table long after dinner, a stack of old law school notes spread out in front of me. Couldn't sleep, he asked. Just thinking, I said, about how far it all went, how close she came to ruining everything I worked for. He sat beside me, his hand warm on mine. She didn't ruin it. You built it strong enough to survive her. I looked at him, at the steadiness in his eyes, and felt something I hadn't in years. Peace without guilt. 6 months later, a thin white envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. The handwriting was unmistakable, too careful, too familiar. I opened it against my better judgment. Sloan, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I finally understand what I did. I've been angry at you for years, but the truth is, you didn't destroy me. I did that all by myself. I'm sorry. Melissa. I folded the letter once, then twice, and slid it into a drawer. Not out of forgiveness, out of closure. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't a gift you give the person who hurt you. It's the permission you give yourself to stop bleeding from their knife. A year later, I stood in front of a classroom at the law school that once kept me awake until 2 a.m. A new generation of night students sat in front of me. Exhausted nurses, single parents, 40-somethings who whispered apologies for starting late. I smiled at them and said, "You're not late. You're right on time. Anyone who tells you otherwise is afraid you'll prove them wrong." They laughed softly, and I felt the past slide off my shoulders like an old coat. Because that was the final twist. Not that Melissa lost. Not that I won. But that I'd built a life so solid, her chaos couldn't find a door anymore. The storm was over. The sky had cleared. And for the first time, I didn't just feel free. I felt untouchable.